Welcome to another episode of the Connecting Through Technology podcast powered by Intellacall. I'm your host, Jonathan Kaur, and today I have the privilege of speaking to Dan Cilley, the CEO of VendorNeutral, which helps enterprises identify technology requirements and discover practical industry solutions. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you so much for having me, Jonathan.
Awesome. Well, let's kick this off right away, Dan, and have you share, basically just tell us a little bit about yourself and also to some of the main reasons why you decided to start VendorNeutral.
Sure. Well, my name is Dan Cilley. I'm the founder and CEO of VendorNeutral. We created VendorNeutral because it's just a lot of businesses that struggle with sales technology, strategy, selection, integration, and they're just seeing low adoption rate and poor ROI. So we, saw an opportunity to help these organizations simplify their sales tech selection process, simplify their integration, simplify their onboarding, and get a win. Because again, at the end of the day, if you're not seeing the return on investment surrounding your tech, you're not going to be seeing success or be able to bring in new tech as well.
Yeah, and specifically now with the topic of obviously sales, right now we're in the middle of this pandemic, and I would say there's been mass adoption of sales technology, different uses of sales technology. So my question to you is, how has your business been doing during this pandemic, and how has it changed maybe the way you do business in general?
Great question. We started even before the pandemic, we started to see a transition, right? We started to see a transition from productized selling to value selling, right? So we started to think about, how we brought awareness of our capabilities to the market. We're kind of a two-pronged approach. We come to the market offering visibility into the vendor community and understanding of what these technologies and solutions actually do, how they're categorized, how they can help you succeed. And then we also work directly with large enterprises to help them enable either their ROI surrounding the sales tech strategy or a future roadmap for their success. What we saw was, again, we originally were doing a lot of the effort was at a conference level, right? Events. We would show up face to face, be 150, 200, 300, sometimes 1,000 people, right? Where you would engage at your booth and make introductions, show them your stuff. But that had to change pretty quickly. Luckily, like I said, we saw that evolution. We saw that need early on. So we started to develop webinars. We developed panel-based webinars that were not product-focused in any way. It really spoke to a challenge, a need within the marketplace. We brought vendors together, thought leaders together, people in the sales roles, people in the marketing roles, and we had them speak to where their best practices were, where they were seeing success, and they shared that, and that became a great resource. So we were able to replace those face-to-face events with these webinars and also podcasts as well. We started to do some podcasts, but those efforts were great resources, not only for us to engage with prospects, but also for the community that we were supporting, the vendor community and the buying community, to have the resources they need to be successful.
Yeah, and specifically with a platform like LinkedIn, you see a lot more thought leaders, I would say, rise up during this time. A lot of people, not a lot of people, because there's still a minimum amount of people producing a majority of the content for LinkedIn, but people leveraging podcasts like we're doing today, or webinars, or different forms of content marketing. Maybe it is blog or video for YouTube and different things like that. And so it's obviously encouraging to see that that VendorNeutral actually pivoted into adopting a new way of doing business, and arguably has become probably more efficient, more cost effective in a lot of ways. So specifically speaking about VendorNeutral, what types of customers do you look to work with, and realistically, what's the segment of people that you would call your target audience?
Well, again, two prongs. So let's speak to both. So first, we enable buyers at all levels. So our website, resources on our website are free. They're available for a buyer to leverage, whether you're an SMB or you're an enterprise organization. It's just the task becomes much more difficult when you're looking at large mid-market, enterprise level organizations. It's not a single tech solution. It's not one or two solutions. It's 10, 20, 30 solutions. They all have to be integrated together. They have to effectively have the ROI that they need to be successful. So at the end of the day, we need to look at it in two different ways. So like I said, our website is available to buyers at all levels. If you can do it yourself, feel free. There's a DIY approach on our website, clearly outlines how to how to look at technology, how to look at your priorities and your process and think through them, and really look at what's going to move the needle, and then apply the resources on our website to make the right choices surrounding the technology. And then you could also come to us, directly through our consultancy, and that's where we, really monetize when it comes to vendor neutral. Here is our ability to help enterprise level organizations, really companies that have minimum of 100 customer facing staff, to really clear the fog, right? Understand the ROI within their existing stack, understand the opportunity to move forward, close gaps, really also have an understanding of the capability of their organization. Do they have the capability to deliver the content, to the administration required to manage these resources? There's a lot behind the tech, especially at the enterprise level, that you need some support, and that's what we're here for.
I wanted to ask you and have you expand a little bit more, especially from the consulting capacity that Vendor Neutral works with, several more enterprise, like you mentioned, over 100, sales facing employees. Have there been any trends or any maybe similar roadblocks that you see enterprise companies at that level face from a sales standpoint?
Yeah, the largest obstacle, and it's one we identify very early in our consultancy, is stakeholders. They're first of all, two things: it's communication and stakeholders, and they both work closely together. They're both involved. So when we think about stakeholders, there's a number of stakeholders in every organization. And we think about enterprise, it gets more expansive. There's just so many individuals that are impacted by the sales process, by the marketing process. And some of them are just looking for insights, through the data that's being delivered. But a lot are looking for results. A lot are looking for that transaction, right? They're looking for the sale to feed the rest of the organization. So it's really important to understand who those stakeholders are, understand whether they're interested in helping, hindering, or hurdling your opportunity forward. It's also important to understand if they have technology, what that is, what data is supporting that technology, what insights they're looking for from that technology, and have a good understanding of that. That visibility is going to go a long way, especially when you start to think about new technology, because if you have that awareness, you don't have to ask that question later on and kind of backtrack. So that's pretty powerful. Ignoring the fact that the end user doesn't need to be involved is foolish. They need to be involved from the beginning. You need to hear their day-to-day process, what keeps them up at night, and what keeps their managers up at night, and then try to identify what's going to enable them, what's going to improve that process, what's going to be their priority, and then that's really what's going to move the needle, and that's what most likely they're going to embrace, and they're going to learn. They're going to be willing to adopt and bring it to the organization quickly. Otherwise, it's an uphill battle. You'll be really struggling with adoption, onboarding, training, because there won't be a willingness because you didn't communicate, you didn't share along the way.
We hope you're enjoying today's episode. Here's a quick shout out to today's sponsor. Intellacall is a video software that connects your customers with anyone in your organization with just one click from your website. But in a world filled with video software, why should you consider Intellacall? I'll tell you why using one word: simplicity. Intellacall allows you to connect via video without downloading any software, sending any meeting IDs, or passwords. On top of that, Intellacall integrates directly onto your website, so if any customers or prospects want to get in contact with you directly, they can do just that. For more information on Intellacall or to schedule a demo, please visit us at www.intellacall.com. And now, back to today's episode. Going back to specifically talking about sales, obviously there's different ways of generating leads or revenue for different organizations. It looks different for everybody. And so I wanted to ask you, what's the process for Vendor Neutral of actually not only just brand awareness type campaigns or content, but also to just stuff that actually move the needle specifically from a lead generation standpoint?
Well, again, we started off understanding that it was about a give, right? We need to give a lot more to get. So we developed this landscape you see me behind me. It's we partnered with a number of societies, a number of associations, and groups to kind of spread the word, to create awareness. Um, that was probably the greatest opportunity for us to have that, understanding across different practitioners and different abilities within an organization. Started off with, we would do a lot of outbound activity. We would do a lot of emails and then about follow-up phone calls. But what ended up happening was it really started to realize that for our own resources, meaning our consultancy, our own efforts, I should say, that it was a referral effort that generated the most business. One customer success, speaking to another customer, another prospect really led to that referral and then also new business for us. Also, our attendance at some very high level events like retreats, those are gone. But when we were attending those events, like with companies like organizations like Frost and Sullivan, GDS, it was, a small group of people, 50, maybe 60 individuals, all senior leadership at enterprise level organizations. We would attend, we would not only be present, but we would have a workshop, and that would be a half a day effort where we would demonstrate our methodology, our capability, our stack framework. And they would, at that point, better understand how it could be integrated into their organization. And we would immediately engage with those organizations following the event and more than likely have some type of relationship surrounding their sales tech selection strategy.
Yeah, and so specifically with your vendor neutral website, which you had mentioned, the background that you had behind you is obviously free and an access a free resource for everybody to obviously go check out. But I wanted to ask, because you had mentioned obviously some of the kind of I guess pain points or roadblocks that enterprise type companies run into. I wanted to ask you maybe more to the SMB kind of mid-market type of companies. What specifically do you believe like those size organizations get wrong when it comes to their sales tech stack?
So I know exactly. The answer to this is simple. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the fact that these individuals don't know what they don't know. So they go out to their peers, especially in social media, and they ask the question, what CRM should I buy? What customer engagement tool should I buy? What conversation intelligence resource should I buy? And then everyone just raises their hands up in the community, especially those that have relationships with those products, because they want to refer them. They're going to get a kickback. They're going to get some type of benefit from it. So that's probably the worst approach, because you're gonna get the top of the market solutions. You're gonna get the best in class, which is nothing wrong with it, but you're also getting the most expensive, right? So you're probably getting the most expensive solution because they need that to be able to generate business at the SMB smaller level, because the enterprises are buying those resources. They're well funded. They have the ability to integrate them effectively, so they are buying them. But when you're thinking about the smaller organization, the small company, there's a lot of other solutions out there that do a lot of the same things. They may not be as robust. They may not have all of the features and benefits that you see in these other resources, but they're meeting your needs. They're meeting your priorities, your challenges. And that goes a long way. And you can often save quite a bit of money. And in almost every one of these categories you see behind me, there's a solution that is probably a very low price point, and there's probably a solution with a very high price point. They are all going to meet your needs, but really, when it comes down to it, what are your priorities? And then what's going to move the needle? And then think about the price of the solution you're considering at the end of the day, because that's going to make a big difference when it comes to your value and your ROI at the end of the day as well.
So Dan, what would you tell to the salesman today who's like, I don't want to use software. I just want to use my phone. I want to use an Excel file and that's it. What would you tell them as far as like, maybe not convincing them, but maybe shining some light on the benefits as far as how it can make their life easier, more efficient, and ultimately obviously grow more revenue for their business?
Yeah, you make a good point. There's nothing wrong with spreadsheets. So people are probably like, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with that resource. If it's something that you are using effectively and you're able to maybe leverage other pieces of technology to make your life easier, that's great. Really, you got to start with a source of truth. At the end of the day, you need a source of truth. So if that's your spreadsheet and you believe in that spreadsheet, that workbook, and it has everything you need, it's never failed you yet, great. That's your source of truth. But more often than not, you need a CRM. You need an ERP. You need something that's been validated repeatedly, and that you can lean on. So you need that source of truth. You need to focus on resources that are going to help you present yourself more effectively. So think about resources like Grammarly. Think about resources that are going to give you a presence in the marketplace, maybe video technology. And there's a lot of simple resources out there. One of the coolest resources, I actually like to recommend this to people. It's free. It's an AI tool. It's called Narrow, Narro. You can find it on all the app stores. And what it does is it allows you to take a URL, and especially if somebody like a sales rep is kind of educating themselves and they're learning, they're trying to figure out, how they're going to be successful. Well, there's all these articles, right? There's all these articles, and they're URL based. So you just got to take this URL from any article you're interested in. You dump it into Narrow, and it immediately converts it into a podcast instantly within 3 seconds. So that 3-page article is now a podcast you can listen to in your car, while you're walking, whatever. And it's a really easy way to download and absorb content and to educate yourself quickly. Very low cost, very inexpensive. Actually, Narrow costs nothing. The only time it costs anything is when you upgrade to its ability to take any content. I mean, you can take any written content, dump it in, and it'll convert it to a podcast. But otherwise, it's a great resource, and that's something else I would recommend these sales reps that are kind of up and coming look at.
Before I ask the last question, Dan, I wanted to touch base on the power of video. Right now we're recording a video podcast interview. I've seen you've done some video content on LinkedIn specifically. Obviously, you've done your webinars. You're doing a podcast, and so I wanted to ask you, with the rise of video conferencing, what advantages do you see the use of video conferencing play within the functions of sales within an organization?
Well, it's essential. In this environment, during the pandemic, it's essential. It's the opportunity for face-to-face connection is not there. People still want to see who they're buying something from. They still want to engage. Video is very powerful. It's probably not going to. It doesn't need to be as polished as it has been in the past. My videographer is going to kill me for saying this, but it's sometimes this type of effort is more better received than a 30-second well-produced commercial. You know what I mean? That it sends a message, it educates, it provides a lot of awareness that answers a lot of questions that maybe that buyer was thinking about. And the commercial does that as well, but it's very focused effort, and I appreciate both sides of it. That's why I leverage both. We have highly produced content, and then we have this type of content. And I feel this type of content done well using a number of technologies. There's just so many that are coming to the surface right now. And I highly recommend you really consider the gamut here. Don't look at just one solution. They all offer very unique capabilities. And at the end of the day, consider the one that's going to it's going to represent your ability the most, and also deliver the result you're looking for. And that could be transcriptions, it could be just a multitude of resources, but that's what you really should start to consider before you engage or pick a solution. Because right now there's a lot of solutions that are standing out, but there's just a lot more that probably you should look at and consider.
Well said, Dan. You are obviously a man who's very immersed in the sales technology stack, and obviously hearing you share a lot of insight, I really appreciate that. So if people are interested in connecting and learning more about you and VendorNeutral, where can they find you and where can they connect with you on?
Yeah, it's not a problem. You can find me very easily. Just search Dan Cilley. My name is unique, Cilley. I'm also, if you search VendorNeutral on Google, you will find us. Our resources are prevalent. Again, engage with our website, leverage our resources. They are free. They're there to help you simplify the sales tech selection process. And if we could help you, if your organization, if that lift is a little heavier than a single tech strategy that you can do on your own, don't hesitate to reach out. We'd be happy to help you succeed. Thanks again. Really great to have you. Great to be here, Jonathan. Thanks again.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dan Cilley, for sharing a lot of the insight. Obviously, you bring a lot of perspective working with Like I mentioned, like you focus on maybe the higher consulting, more enterprise type companies, but obviously you bring a lot of insight from an SMB mid-market standpoint. So I appreciate you sharing resources, tools, and tips that sales and also business leaders can implement right away in their business.
It was great to be here, Jonathan. Thanks again for having me.